this is getting your life together. The vision behind it was simply this. None of us is any better than anyone else, and I'm not trying to tell anyone else how to run their lives, but I do know some people who are struggling with how to run their lives. In other words, there's lots of things that they'd like to do, they can't manage to get on top of the things they have going on, and to be the leader that they want, the parent that they want, the influencer, to be have the career that they want. They're just struggling getting things in order, and I didn't want to call it priorities or getting organized or anything. I want to call it something that we at least get our attention. So that's why I call it getting your life together. Do what matters, be the best version of you. We're trying to ask and answer what's important to us. And so part 1 tonight is do what matters. Part 2 next time is be the best version of you. So we're going to start off with this. I can't tell you, I can only ask you what's important to you. For us to start off, for us to try to get things together and put our lives in a direction, you have to answer that question. What's important to you? We have to figure out why we're here and what our priorities are. And so this very first section, we'll talk about our purposes, our priorities, and I'm going to give you a few moments to answer that question for yourselves. Maybe you've done that before, maybe you haven't, but to actually write out a little bit, what are my main reasons for existence? Why has God put me here? And we'll give some hints. But before we do that, I want to read you some absolute purposes for your life. You'll pick some of them, but you need to see that God has picked some of them for you as well. And we need to submit ourselves to those. Hosea 6:6 says, "For I desire steadfast love and not sacrifice, the knowledge of God rather than burnt offerings." This is what we want to focus on. Before all the other things that people like to say, this is how we get ourselves right, God says, you're here to know me. I want you to know me. 2 Peter 1:3 says, "His divine power has granted to us all things that pertain to life and godliness." All things that pertain to life and godliness. That's a big deal. Through what? Through the knowledge of Him who called us to His own glory and excellence. Again, knowing God is our first step. And then 2 Corinthians 3:18, "And we all, with unveiled face, beholding the glory of the Lord, are being transformed into the same image from one degree of glory to another, for this comes from the Lord who is the Spirit." We are being transformed into the same image, the image of Christ. The image of God that we behold in Jesus Christ, we're being transformed into that image. Romans 8:28-29, you're familiar with it. And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to His purpose. For those whom He foreknew, there's that knowing God again, He also predestined to be conformed to the image of His Son, Jesus Christ, in order that He might be the firstborn among many brothers. So, in these verses, what's God up to? Why are you here? Know God, become like His Son, Jesus Christ. These are absolutes. These are the same for all of us who know God, who have a relationship with Him through His Son, Jesus Christ. These are why we're created. He made us to know Him. He made us so that we would become more and more and more like His Son, Jesus Christ. It's a process. Both of these are a process. We have to work at it. We have to do what God says to get there. And ultimately, it's not until we're glorified when Jesus comes again, but in the meantime, we're working at it. And that means that when we set our purposes and priorities for our life, these have to be on the top of the list. And that's what we're getting at. Those top two, they're the same for all of us, and they have to be the top two because they're absolutes. After that, we get into our own personalities, our own strengths and weaknesses, our giftedness, our roles, our relationships. After that, we get into the rest of our lives. Now, you decide the rest. So we're going to take a few moments here, and I'm going to let you write. And it'll be silent. It won't be awkward. It'll be silent for a few moments, because I'm going to let you write. Because there's some space there, and I want you to, after thinking about, hey, I'm here to know God. I'm here to become like Jesus. And then, what else has God put me on this earth to do? I can't answer that for you. Maybe you're fully aware. This is exactly why God created me. Maybe you don't know. So here's some hints. What are you good at? What are your relationships?
I'm married, I have children. That means I have some huge purposes in my life centered around those people. That's not true for everybody. God has put me in a career. Those things can change. But as things are right now, there's some roles that are going on in my life, some reasons that we can tell, looking at our own lives, this is what I'm all about. This is what God made me to be. Take a few moments, and I'll shut up, and you can just kind of write some things down. As far as I can tell, God put me on this earth to do these things. Write some stuff down. Okay, guys, maybe you're saying to yourself, hey, after knowing God, becoming like Jesus, I am here to witness to people. I mean, my life is built around being able to tell people about Jesus. Everything I do is just me finding an excuse to put people, in my way to tell them about Jesus. Maybe you're saying, you know what? I don't care what it is. I'm just going to teach people. I want to stand in front of people and teach people. Or maybe I'm here because God has given me gifts with my hands that I need to use them to serve Him, to serve people, and to glorify Him by using my talents in that way. There's lots of things that you can put there, and there's probably multiple things that you'll put there. They all come under, as in priority, importance, knowing God, becoming like Jesus, because those are absolutes. But the rest... Now, we took a few minutes to do that. These things are hard to do. I understand that it can take a process of years to try to, really figure out, why we're here. And that's not really what we were able to do tonight. But I'm just saying that, reiterating that what we're doing isn't about me telling you what to do. It's about me trying to help you achieve what you want to do. That's why we're here. Now, we've got some purposes in our lives, and we have to translate those. How do we get there? We know we're here, but how do we get there? Because far too often, we take our lives as it comes at us, rather than, I have to attack these purposes. This is what God has built me to do. I need to center my life around those things and really make the most of it. How do you get there? How do you turn purposes into priorities? Those are the questions. Because, we can dream. That's good. We should. We can dream. Wish lists aren't really, that's not really how we get there when it comes to accomplishing our purposes. So we can dream, we can desire, we can want, we can write it down. But if I wrote down, my life purpose right now and sealed it in an envelope and put it in a drawer and came back to it in 30, 40, 50 years, but by the grace of God, not much would happen in that direction unless it was something automatic, like I'm here to keep breathing every day. So if it was something that was big, if it was something that took real hard work, unless I really break it down, my purposes don't really become a reality, at least in any real qualitative sense. It's not in a way that impacts the world around me like we want it to, like we know God has put us here to do. And so how do we get there? How do we turn purposes into priorities, goals, projects, tasks? You might have heard some, sayings like, goals are what turn dreams into realities. That's true. But even goals can be really big. Goals can be really big. Like by the time I'll say it for me, by the time I'm 50, what's going to happen? So that's 5 years and change away. Okay, for me to have some goals to accomplish my life purposes by that time, I'm going to have to really get to work on those. But if they're big goals, even then it's not enough. For me to accomplish the goals, I got to turn them into even smaller units, like projects, and then even smaller than that. Doable, measurable, systematic, structured, something that I can do, that I can accomplish, that I can measure, that's very, very specific. In order for me to be able to give this much time, give this much of my salary per year, whatever, I'm going to have to get there in the stages. I'm going to have to work at it. And so really, the only way that we can make our life purposes, turn them into priorities, into something that we can actually do, is to break them down into chunks that ultimately are steps that we can take today. Ultimately, the task that's doable is a task that you can do today. Goals are usually bigger than that. Goals aren't really, real goals are going to take longer than something that I can do today, especially if they're long-range goals. If they're really life purposes, I got to break them down into something that's much more measurable. It's something that's specific that I can accomplish in a shorter amount of time. So the real work of accomplishing our life purposes is breaking it down into things that will get us there, into smaller and smaller and smaller chunks. It could be a goal to accomplish something in education. You don't just go show up at school and say, "Hey, I'm here." School breaks it down into classes and assignments and different levels, and likewise, it's going to be with any of our life goals. We break it down into something smaller like projects. We break it down into something smaller like tasks, and then just to help remind us, tasks are terrific. We should have in our head, in our minds, we should know what tasks we need to take up to help us accomplish our purposes. In fact, some people write, their most important task of the day down in front of them on a piece of paper, in their journal, in their computer, on their whiteboard. Some people write that down. This is like the main thing that I have accomplished today, and no more. That's it. I just write the most important thing down. So we're always thinking in terms of tasks to help us accomplish our goals. Tasks are terrific. Task lists are awful. Task lists are terrible. And so one of the things that that I wanted to do was go back and forth a little bit, so that I was going to talk and give you some opportunity to reflect a little bit. But task lists are terrible, and so here's some practical. Now I'm meddling. I'll go back and forth between giving you God's word and meddling a little bit in this. So here's the deal with task lists. And I mean, the jury's back. The science isn't out. I mean, we know that task lists, half of our task lists, if we write to-do lists, half of it gets done in the first hour, because we write things that we know we're going to cross off in a hurry. 40% of the stuff in our to-do lists never get done. And so we go to bed and it didn't get done. And it's something that we didn't do. And we push it off the next day and the next day, and we have 40% of the things that we put on our to-do list never get done. And it increases our stress and our anxiety. We don't feel good about ourselves. And let me tell you one of the reasons why. Because writing a list, a little checkbox and a line, a little checkbox and a line, every line takes up the same amount of space. So if I write, write a chapter in a book, right next to do the dishes, they take up the same amount of space on that paper. They don't take up the same amount of space in my life, right? So, but that's what we do. And then, because the same endorphin rush comes from checking off anything, what do? We go to that task list and we check off the things that we can get done. In fact, you've written things on your to-do list before that you've already done just so you can check them off. So we've all done that because we love to check those things off. And so we write down, and so we do the things that are easy, that are quick, that are urgent. But these things, these purposes, those are important, but they're not usually urgent. Big life goals are important. They're not usually urgent. We've got to set some time aside for that. So the only way to make that work is to live from your calendar. We all have different kinds of scheduling. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But if a task is important, you have to block out the time for it, because we've already talked about it. Some things, they get done in a jiffy. They're done in the next hour. Some things take time. And if it's important, we're going to take the time to do it. We're going to put it on our calendar. This is important. I have to take these 2 hours, schedule it, and do it. Some of us aren't really in control of our schedules very much. For instance, in our work, in our career. Some of us are completely in control of our schedules. The principles apply. We just kind of have to find a way on that. But so this is really the first big deal. After we figure out what we're here to do, we live from our calendars and not from our task lists. That's really the way to get things done. Any thoughts, questions, comments about that? So first, we're talking about, hey, do the, what's important to you. Now, I can't tell you all of that. That's up to you. But first we say, what's important to you? You figure out your purposes, figure out your priorities, and attack. Now, not all of us are built super high disciplined and really built to attack things, and some of us are more easygoing than others. I'm not arguing with that. I'm not trying to change anyone's personality on all that. I'm just trying to share ways that some of us can use to improve doing what is most important, which, by the way, I'll talk about this again next week too, but I don't want anyone to be confused with some kind of, hey, I'm a slave to this book that I put together of all the things that I'm going to do, and I'm never going to be able to change a plan or do something different than I'd written out earlier this morning. That's not our goal. Our goal is to meet our goals. Sometimes there's interruptions, and God gives us wisdom to deal with those too. But now that we're talking about from our lives all the way down to our day, our days and our specific tasks to reach our goals, and scheduling them from calendars, not just a list of things to do. When's the best time? So remember, today we're talking about do the right things. First of all, you got to figure out what's important to you. Then, when's the best time? So we talk about timing and scheduling. So this is interesting. Not an expert on any of this, by the way. That's why I will show you books along the way. Chronobiology is huge. It is a really big deal. You were born with it, and you can't change it. Take that. Chronobiology refers to your chronotype, refers to circadian rhythms, refers to the cycles that your body naturally goes through with sleep, awake, energy, high points in the day, low points in the day, when you're good at certain things during the day, when you're not good at certain things during the day. That's what we're talking about with that. So this is a big deal because we deal with it every single day, and we usually fight it instead of working with it. So which sounds more like your average day? Look at these options, 1, 2, 3 on the left or 1, 2, 3 on the right. Is your day usually something more like, there's no right or wrong answer to this, by the way. Is your day usually something more like in the morning hours, you're really focused, you have a lot of energy, and you really push. You're at your most productive, you're driven, you're going. You can really cruise during these early hours of the day. And then kind of after lunch, a little while into the afternoon, whatever, you kind of slump. It's kind of a low point. You're just trying to do what you can to stay awake. Or maybe you take a nap. Or maybe you just kind of rest a little bit. And then a little bit later, you kind of recover. You rebound from that. And now we're talking later afternoon, early evenings, and you really start to come back, and you find a new energy, a second wind. And it's not like the morning, but you're really productive again, but in different ways. First of all, if that sounds like you, would you just raise your hand? Okay, so some are sure, some a little bit less. All right, what about this? Maybe this is you. Maybe if we reverse the order, it sounds like you. In the morning, you're a little bit groggy, but eventually you get up and you really find that you're recovering, and you're not at your most productive, but you're good in the morning. Once you get up, once you kind of get things going, you're pretty good, and you like to have meetings with people, and you like to come up with ideas and all that. And then in the afternoon you kind of slump again, and then, like the others. And then from the early evenings on, now you're cruising. You find your energy, and you're really going at basically evenings to night. Is that you? Okay, we got some. So traditionally, we talk about morning people and night people. There's probably more chronotypes than that, but that's a real thing, and you're born with it. You're born with it. You don't change it. There might be 3 chronotypes. There might be 4 chronotypes. That's not my goal to teach as if I know about that, but I've learned about that. And things that I've learned are that small children tend to be morning, tend to be early. Teenagers, it shifts more towards night. Most of adulthood is more morning for most people, and then for seniors, they start to switch. They start to switch back. Now, this side here is going to be about 2/3 to 3/4 of us, and this side over here, the night people, are going to be more in the range of 1/3 a quarter to a third of us. The world is built. The world is built around sun to sun, sunrise to sunset, okay? So, by the way, there's definitely some other types in between there. Most people are a little bit more in between. For the early risers, some of us struggle because at night we have no social lives. We're terrible. We're sleeping. When everyone's ready to, So the genuine, not super early, but kind of sunrise to sunset people, the world is built around them. Sorry for the early people or for the night people. We just have to, deal with that. I tend personally to be more between the early morning and just kind of the regular morning, mid-morning kind of person. So, but I definitely follow that. My kids will tell you exactly what good I am after 8 or 9 o'clock at night. I just got to look. All right. So that's the way that it goes. And we're working with people and we're living with people in our own families who might not follow the exact same pattern, and yet here we are. And why are they like that? Why are you like that? They were born that way. It's not a right or wrong. It's not from the Bible. It's just the way that we see our lives going. So rather than fight it, ride your wave. You know when you're good. You know your best times. You know what your peak hours are. Ride your wave the best that you can. I understand that we can't all control our schedules, but the best that we can at least nudge our schedules. So let me just go with the more traditional morning. You can flip this. It doesn't matter. Here's the idea. For that focus time, if you're a morning person, that focus time is early to mid-morning or to late, well, I'll just say morning. So here's what you're good at in your focus time. When you're really cruising, you have all your energy, you're really productive, you're just driving, you're good at your rational and analytical work. If you need to work on math, if you need to work on it should be where you're putting most of your career efforts into, or it should be where you're putting most of your time efforts into, is that analytical, you're doing what you're made to do. This is the time for you to do it. Dive in. Put some time into it. If your schedule doesn't allow you to do it, find a way. Get up earlier, stay up later, do whatever. Find a way to put this time into what you were really built to do. The slump time, everyone deals with it at some point in their day, and it's usually kind of in the mid-afternoon, and we're not at our best. But unless we ever actually have an opportunity to take a 15-minute nap and recover, we need to take it easy during the slump time. That doesn't mean that we have to do nothing, but it means that we're not going to be at our best. It means that if we're really trying to get lots done, or if we're really trying to work with people, or if we're really trying to be creative, we're going to have a hard time doing that. And I've sat behind a desk lots of times and said, what am I doing here? So you know what you do during the slump time? Busy work. And that's administrative work. It's the paperwork. It's all the shuffling, the organizing, the just writing the reports and writing out the stuff that you just got to get done. That's the perfect time to do it. It doesn't require tons of mental energy. You just got to do it, get it done. It's the busy work. That's the best time to do it. And then your insight time. This is the recovery time. So for the morning person, it's later afternoon to evening. This is the time for the creative work. Off-peak hours are when we're most creative. And that means when we are faced with problem-solving scenarios, we want to use our insight time. We want to use that recovery time, or the it's that rebound time. Off-peak hours. We're better at being creative during off-peak hours. During our peak hours, when we're most motivated to be productive, we tend to guard our brains from wandering. But on our off-peak hours, we let our guard down, and we let them wander, and that's perfect for creativity. And if we're trying to figure out, if I was writing this, and I was just putting this together and really writing my content, morning would be the time. But to try to figure out what the outline would be, like what's the big ideas that I want to get at, how do I want to help people, that would be better at 4 o'clock than at 9 o'clock in the morning. One more thing I wanted to mention, for whatever your type, for whatever way that you're built. to help us get our lives together. Win the morning. You win the morning, you win the day. Highly motivated, highly driven, highly successful people, they usually have a morning routine that they don't budge from very much. It's whatever your goals are, that's going to help you with that. But morning routines are excellent. And if we want something to be repeated, morning is the best time to do it. It just is the best time to do it. That doesn't mean it's our best hours. It just means that when we take advantage of the early part of our day, we can, when we use that early time to do the things that we want to make sure that we do every day, which often includes that workout, includes those devotions, because we want to deal with our character, the kind of people that we are, who we're becoming, taking care of our health. Lots of times people do, if they want to stay routine at those, they do them early because they know once the day starts, it's hard to go back to those kinds of things. Those early times are times when people catch up on the news of their organization, their business, whatever. Those are times when they plan their day, they schedule their day or their week out. You win the morning, you win the day. You get up and kind of stagger into it and let life come at you. The day is half gone before you even get a chance to think about what you want to get accomplished, and it's gone. It's gone. You're just kind of doing stuff as it comes. So my addition to that, which isn't really a chronotype thing, it's just productivity stuff. More of it comes back to this book. Win the morning, win the day. So let's talk about scheduling now. We're talking specifically about our calendars or whatever ways that we schedule. You need a better system. That's what Dan Austin told me at Baptist Bible Seminary when I almost missed a meeting that we had rescheduled because I missed the first one. My problem was my days were extremely routine. I didn't really carry much of a calendar because every day was pretty much the same. And so when there were things that were different, meetings or appointments, I just had the hardest time remembering to go to them. Yeah, I could write it down, but I didn't look at what I wrote down because I never needed to. I had the hardest time. And so when I was late to our rescheduled meeting, he said to me, Eric, you need to find a better system. So I say to us, you need to find a better system, or you might need to find a better system. I don't know what you use, and I hope it's great, and I hope you love it. Say, hey, if you love your system and it works for you, great. Don't let me meddle. But if you find yourself having some struggles in that, maybe this can help. I hope so. So some scheduling fails and fixes. Maybe you were like me back when I was in seminary and you were on autopilot. You just did what you always did. And so you need a system that provides you with notifications. Now that's really hard if it's not an electronic system. But it is 2019 after all. And so it's easy to have an electronic system. Most of us have phones that if we don't use the calendars, we can at least use the alarms, the timers, the alarms, the whatever kinds of notifications are in there. If your struggle is, I don't remember what's on my calendar, you need something or someone to interrupt you. Hey, now's the time. You got 10 minutes to get this done. I use notifications all the time, and it could be 10 minutes, but there's some things that I'm like, I need to put that on my calendar, and then I need to put a reminder for that morning. In fact, I need to send myself a reminder 10 hours before then because I'm going to have to get ready to do it. So some things are radical issues that day, and I know I'm putting it on the calendar 3 months out, and I better give myself 3 reminders the day before. Other things are, I just want to get this done. Give me a reminder 10 minutes before, and I'll be able to get to it. Issues with notifications. Does anyone have issues with too many notifications coming at them? Control your notifications. To me, if I have notifications other than text messages and schedule notifications, I'm doing it wrong. I don't need notifications on emails. I don't need notifications, at least audible notifications on social media and some of that kind of stuff. I just need notifications for if I'm going to be interrupted, I need to be interrupted. But if it's something that can wait, then it shouldn't interrupt me. I should check it according to when I put checking it on my schedule. You see how this is all working together on that? So if you're on autopilot and you miss things because you just don't remember, you need a system with notifications. What about if you're double booked? I'm with people pretty regularly that sign up for everything. They sign up for everything and back out of half of it. They wanted to do it. Their heart was in it. They thought it was a great idea. They just forgot about, they sign up for 10 things, or they forgot about the other family member's calendar, or they forgot about their spouse's thing, or whatever. And the solution to double booking is just have one calendar. Well, I have the calendar that I keep in my pocket. I've got the one that's on my refrigerator. I've got the church calendar. I've got the one on the wall in the family room. You need one calendar. Put it all in one spot. Easy for you to say. You only have to worry about yourself. I have to worry, you're saying. I have to worry about me, my spouse, and 10 kids that I got to put all their calendars together. I get it. It's hard. But this is still the solution. It's still the solution. One calendar is it. Now, part of the problem, again, with paper calendars is they give you the same amount of space on the paper calendar for a day that's full as for a day that's empty. Whereas with an electronic calendar, at least with mine, I can share calendars with other people, and I can toggle on and off their calendars. And my wife Carrie has permission to put things on my calendar. I don't mean she has relational permission. She does. That's assumed. She actually has access to my calendar so that she can put stuff on there, and she knows I better put that on his calendar so that he sees it. We do that for each other so that we can make sure that we're not double booking. So that so I have one that I carry. Carrie has her own. Do your thing, but if your trouble is you put something on one calendar and something else on another, your issue is you need one calendar. If you don't have an issue with it, I don't know, keep 10 calendars. What do I care? If you're away from your calendar all the time, then you need a calendar that's mobile or synchronized and mobile. All right. Again, if you keep a paper calendar, then it needs to be something that you can keep with you all the time, because lots of times we're scheduling things when we're away from home. Most of the things I schedule are when I'm away from home, and so you want something that's either mobile or synchronized. Again, that is mobile. So my calendar I can pull up anywhere that I'm connected, and I've got that with me. That's another thing that we see people struggle with. I forgot. Oh, I didn't. I signed up for something, but I didn't have. Well, keep your calendar with you, and you can tell. You'll be able to see everything that's on that calendar. What else? What other calendar or scheduling struggles do we have? I wrote that other line in there because I wondered if maybe I'd forgotten. The calendar that I used just this last year, I could schedule things, and I could put to-do, task list kinds of things on the calendar. And in this last year, I stopped using the to-do list items altogether. And I replaced them with reminders, which is close. So it's close. But the thing about my calendar, which is a Google Calendar, is that reminders actually get scheduled into the day, and if you miss them, they stay current. They come with you. And usually I put a reminder on my calendar, which is a task list, by the way. Usually I put that on because it's like, I need to do this next Wednesday. I'll start to think about it. But when it's time to get it done, I drop it into a time block, somewhere. So I do use task lists, but only because I can push them out to a certain day. Then when I get to that day, I schedule it, or reschedule it, or however that's going to work. Okay, the next part, be the best version of you. Yeah, we're going to spend some time coming back to this idea of, well, what about if this happens, or what about if something interrupts this, these goals, these priorities? If there's, if I had things all planned out and it doesn't go that way, we are not here. One, we're not here to be perfectionists about anything. We're just trying to help, set some goals and find ways to get them done. We're not perfectionists about that. The other thing is we don't want to go from slave to whichever way the wind blows to slave to this schedule that I wrote last week. Neither of those are good. And so we need some help trying to figure out how to navigate that the best. We'll touch on that a little bit more next week when we come back to being the best version of you. We'll talk more about keeping our lives kind of clean in that kind of way, and also really asking for God's help as we navigate making choices on the fly, when He puts us on the spot.